It kinda goes without saying that Empire Total War was a rather botched game. Don't get me wrong, I love Empire despite its several flaws. The scope of the grand campaign, the many different factions, the new form of long-range combat on land, the all-new naval battles, and even the impactful new technology systems were, if not all awesome, then at least a grand new take on the Total War formula. At the same time though, Empire shipped with a ton of varying missing features, and if you think that's only something you're imagining, then make sure you check out my video on the proof of Empire's missing features which would have changed the game completely. Empire has many awesome mods, but some of them are now older and kind of unwieldy if I do say so myself. That's why today we're checking out the mod called Empire Total War 2, which, when considering everything it adds in terms of units, factions, visuals, sounds, UI, and campaign changes, is not too far from the truth at all. And if that sounds good to you, I really hope you leave a like and a comment down below. And now, Empire Total War 2. It's no secret that Empire is one of the most modding restricted Total War games ever, sporting extremely few if any total conversion mods or any mods that changes or add cities, for example. This is why the majority of Empire mods focus on the unit and faction visuals, namely the way units and flags look and the way the campaign and AI works, often adding more aggressive or reactive AI factions to make campaigns feel more difficult and exciting. Empire Total War 2 is no different in this respect, although as we'll see, there's much more here than your average Darth mod game, even though the game borrows some assets from mods like Darth mod, AUM, Imperial Destroyer, and MFR. Empire Total War 2 offers more than a staggering 2,500 units which are uniquely modeled and playable. Empire has some good unit variety due to the sheer number of factions, but many of the units were simply recolored versions of others, with little that differentiated them elsewhere. Now though, we have dozens of units to choose between from the get-go, and even though the Empire UI was never truly made for this many choices, it's impressive and awesome to see that we have so many new lower, medium, and higher tier units to fight with. This makes it so that, depending on where you are and in which region you are recruiting from, you'll always have new units to send into the battlefield. What makes this even more exciting is the addition of new effects and sounds, some even Napoleon-like. This is my favorite part of the new battlefield experience, as both the visual flair of musket fire and the explosive sounds all around have been vastly updated. Whereas in the vanilla experience, where Empire muskets sounded kind of lame, Empire Total War 2 gunfire sounds explosive and dangerous, yet manages to never become too annoying or too much in a kind of a perfect balance. This meshes excellently with the new visuals as well, and the new smoke effects are so much better than what vanilla Empire ever offered. It's come a long way then, and even though I enjoyed the sounds of the cannons as well, this part is not as satisfying as the visual shots are not always perfectly synced with the sounds of the cannon fire itself. I've noticed that the battle AI is better at formations and trying to outmaneuver the player, although this definitely varies from battle to battle. In one, I was absolutely crushed by a British army mostly made up of native bowmen and horsemen. They had the high ground during a night battle, where their accuracy with the bow completely outmatched my colonial matchlock infantry. Their cavalry would single out my units as well, making them flee one at a time when they weren't massacred by volleys. Oh yeah, there's night battles now as well, which can happen if you're defending against an enemy army. They are a lot hard to get your bearings in, so attacking might be the better choice if vision and daylight is something you value. But Empire Total War also innovates in the campaign department. Here we have beautifully drawn new flags for virtually every faction, and we even have new playable factions here, like Persia and Savoy, which will offer some true underdog experiences versus the likes of France and the Ottoman Empire. In addition, the empires of Britain, France, and Spain are now in possession of their colonies from the get-go, meaning that there's a lot more to think about from turn 1 for these factions. We have a new campaign AI here as well, and it was nice to see that several factions wanted to make trade agreements with me. I will say that the AI sometimes bargains extremely hard though, being very fond of asking for technologies in particular, which is not always something you wish to give away. And that's another thing. This mod is 4 turns per year, and is balanced accordingly, meaning that recruiting units, erecting buildings, and researching technology can take much longer than normal, even though units usually adhere to the same turn times as in vanilla, so warfare itself remains faster and more dynamic than state building. However, if you want a vastly different experience than vanilla, Empire Total War 2 offers a comprehensive integrated sub-mod as well, namely VDM. VDM has the potential to completely change up your Empire campaigns, something you're made aware of from the very beginning. First of all, I like that we're congratulated for installing the mod, which is a bit of a struggle I found, so I was happy to have achieved my first goal. Anyway, this little info box gives us a taste of what VDM offers, and it's quite a lot actually. We have all new mechanics here, ranging from administration points to stability, expansion, army limit modifiers, religion, and cultural influence, even disease, and a completely new missions and event system. Now a lot of these sounds like taken straight out of EU4, and that's because they're heavily inspired by that game. And you know, if there's something I personally want a lot more of in my Total War, it's paradox mechanics that makes the campaign experience deeper. This is really awesome, especially when factoring the new artwork and music implemented with the mod, which makes everything feel a lot more time appropriate. The events range from dealing with corrupt officials to enlightenment matters and even being the defender of the faith, and each choice will make you choose between variant bonuses or penalties depending on what's on offer. These mechanics make Empire so much more fun because you have new things to deal with almost every turn. Because Empire is so limited when it comes to modding though, we have to deal with some liberties here. It's not always as easy or simple to find how to work these new mechanics, so it's important to pay attention to the information that gets handed to you. In the beginning, we're given a host of missions and tasks to complete which will provide you with significant bonuses once they're done, but you might have a problem finding exactly where these tasks are hidden. Well, if you open the Govern panel and then click the question mark on top, the task window reveals itself and you're free to inspect every mission you've received here. There's often quite a lot here, and completing some will often give you new ones, so you'll rarely or never be without any. What can be harder to deal with are the mechanics related to stability, inflation, control, and conspiracy. It's easy enough to increase stability in the realm, to spend control during an event, or to bribe a minister so as to not make an attempt of the life of the monarch. But it's rather difficult to find out everything you want about these mechanics, like what does stability actually do and what even is control. There's even a nationalization mechanic for when taking over new provinces in an attempt to, in my opinion, mimic the coring process in EU4. But since there are no new dedicated menus, it's very hard to know exactly what's going on at times. My biggest advice then would be for the modder to try to make everything clearer, a kind of idiot's guide if you will, because when lacking the proper menus due to hard-coded limits, VDM especially is likely to be difficult to get into for most people. I love that Empire 2 actually implements a way for us to choose an option after conquering a city though, which is something Empire has sorely needed. Empire Total War 2 is a fantastic mod in the making, and I'm emphasizing in the making here because there's still some polish needed for this to be fully finished. But what's here now is already quite amazing. New visuals update the graphics of Empire, whether on the campaign map or on the battlefield, and the latter especially has been given a much more explosive feel due to the new musket fire visuals, sounds, and smoke effects. The campaign is deeper than ever, merging elements of Paradox games like EU4 into this grand Total War experience, and even though I hope things can be made even clearer in the future, there's so much new here that it's hard to go back to vanilla now. I commend the modder for his work, and if you want a much deeper Empire Total War, Empire Total War 2 just might be the mod for you, and I highly recommend checking out the mod now or in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Empire Total War is perhaps the Total War with the biggest need for some awesome updates, and Empire Total War 2 does a really good job in bringing something fresh to the experience. Have you tried or heard of this mod before, and are you planning on checking it out? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, I really hope you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon, where every donation means the world to me. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!